So again, welcome. This is about future planning for caregivers. It's really such an opportune time. I mean, through the whole COVID crisis, I think it's put everything in the forefront of our minds in terms of what, what life would look like differently if we had any issues with, our own health and that sort of thing. So it kind of is just a really current issue. So who's the ARC of Massachusetts? Most of you, I know, are familiar with the ARC. We're the state advocacy organization. We're the primary organization for advocacy for people with disabilities, intellectual disabilities, and developmental disabilities in Massachusetts. We're part of a national brand, and there's ARCs, affiliates of the ARCs all across the country. So we're the largest advocacy organization for people with intellectual disabilities. At the ARC in Massachusetts, we don't really provide programs. Those programs like day in employment and residential and family support programs are provided by the 17 affiliates across the state that we're also part of the ARC brand. So our mission at the ARC of Massachusetts is basically around advocacy, education, outreach. And so my background, I am the Director of Education and Outreach at the ARC of Massachusetts. I come from a very long history of working in family support primarily. This has kind of been my passion and my career, and I'm entering in my 30-something year in terms of working and supporting families. So family support's always been very, very dear to my heart. I'm also, just to give you I've also been doing person-centered planning for a number of years, and I oversee support brokers at the ARC of Massachusetts. And so we're a group of independent contractors that work through the ARC and work with families around planning and navigation and advocacy and brokering and that sort of thing. So we're a private fee-for-service program. We don't get any state funds, which the good thing is that we work for you and your loved ones. We don't represent any kind of program and agency. So my background is I've gone through a significant amount of training in conducting person-centered planning. And then I want to say recently, in the past couple of years, really been diving into a framework called Charting the Life course. It's out of the University of Missouri at Kansas City, and I'll be telling you more about that. But it's a beautiful framework that is just very person-centered, and I just love the universal design of it. So I'll talk to you a little bit about that. And then also back in this past June, or a year ago now, oh wow, we received a grant from the ARC of the United States, and we did a training for, I want to say, about 27 professionals, both from disability field as well as elder services, and it was all on future planning. So the ARC of the United States has a website which we'll also go through called the Center for Future Planning. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that. So that's my background. So let's get going. So what are we going to learn about today? We're going to learn about the landscape across the country and in Massachusetts, really learn about what future planning is, what are some of the barriers to future planning, what are some of the benefits, and what are the components. I like to look at it in terms of legal, financial, but the big quality is, what's a good, meaningful life for individuals. We'll talk a little bit about tools to help with planning. Talk a little bit about, I call it passing the baton, or for older caregivers, how do you make sure the supports for the next phase for your loved one's life, for your life, are in place. And then I'll share some resources with you as well. So this, you might have seen the statistic. This is from the State of the States reported, and this was back in 2015, but 871,000 people with intellectual disabilities lived with caregivers who are 60 years of age or older. So I don't know about you, but since 2015, I'm about 5 years older. So you can imagine that this number has just grown immensely. And then, whoops, sorry, go back. And then, you know, this is from the FIND survey, Family and Individual Needs survey that the ARC of the United States put out. And the amount of hours that caregivers provide is 57 hours a week. So if you're exhausted, if you are feeling like, oh, I just can't do as much as I used to, you know why. 85% of you are balancing family responsibilities. 82% are dealing with breakdowns in support, and if, you know, probably with this whole COVID thing, that would be closer to 100%. 82% of families are feeling physically fatigued, and 76% of you are meeting work responsibilities. So it's a lot juggling. I see a lot of my coworkers who are also parents. Just the real challenge in terms of making sure their kids' schooling is being done virtually, as well as their loved ones with special needs, as well as balancing work responsibilities. So it has not been an easy time. And then in 2017, 48% of families said they were either very or extremely stressed. So again, that number, I imagine, is rising. So this is a little bit about Massachusetts, what goes on right now. And these numbers are old. I mean, they're from 2015. That was the most recent number that was done. But as you can see, 70% of individuals, and these are basically adults, are living with a family caregiver. So what I like to say is families are the largest service providers in Massachusetts. 15% live in supervised residential settings, and 15% alone or with roommates. So, so families are just so deserving of some good support to be able to do your job. And this is a little bit different. This is a national figure, but the number of caregivers who, again, this was in 2015, so this is rising. But across the board, 25% were over age 60, 35% 41 to 59, and caregiver age less than 41. And I imagine this figure has also jumped. So what's future planning? You know, future planning, it's about a guide, it's about a vision, it's about a path for a person with any person, actually, not just with people with intellectual disabilities, but to really lead a good life as independently as possible, having the resources, having goals, having plans, having a vision of what is important. And then when we're talking about future planning, especially with, family caregivers, we're also talking about, who's going to be there in the future when you're not able to, number one, either provide the care or be able to, make sure that it's all in sync. So why do you need future planning? Supporting people with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their aging caregivers to make the plans is going to be increasingly important in the next 15 years. I mean, basically, this is pretty much a crisis across the country where there's so many more aging caregivers, and we're all getting older, and our kids are older because they're living longer. And there's government services are also shrinking. So, the important thing to remember about future planning is that people are not going to call you and ask you, to say, oh, can I get you anything you need? I mean, there will be some helpful supports and services along the way, but this is something that really you want to grasp, you want to look at, you want to tackle, because you're always your loved one's best advocate. And also know what makes them happy, know what they need to be successful, and know the other people in their lives that should also be part of these planning. So what are some of the barriers to future planning? Well, it's very, it's not easy to talk about. Who wants to talk about your mortality? Most families, a lot of families actually that I've worked with in the past say they hope their son or daughter dies the day before they do. Then they know they're okay. Other families kind of joke and say, "Oh, I'm never going to die." So a lot of people aren't aware of all the options. There are different options out there to traditional types of services, and but that's not always well explained to people and or available. And then also there is a lack of resources and options in traditional services. I know that if your loved ones are DDS eligible, DDS will step in, but it doesn't mean it's going to provide that good quality of life we were talking about. And a lot of people are also unaware of possibilities. I also talk, a lot of siblings call support brokers because their parents never really engage them in the whole discussion about what will happen when, they're no longer there. And, I think even though we try to broach this with families about involving, adult siblings, the siblings they're involved with, they've got their own kids, they've got jobs, they've got all sorts of things going on, so they don't want to burden them. But so these are some of the barriers that have been identified. So, but what are the benefits? I mean, peace of mind, number one, right? I mean, having a plan, having, kind of all your paperwork in order. We work with a wonderful family, and, the end result was not what she wanted for her son, of what came out of the person-centered plan and the future planning, but she's okay with it because, she knows her son's going to be loved and well taken care of. So it's kind of a dynamic process, which can be kind of hard, but it does give you peace of mind. And you also reduce burden on future caregivers. Again, I was telling you about adult siblings calling me a lot and just saying, I don't know anything. What do I do? And so it's, as as caregivers and professionals out there, it's a whole language. It's and there's tons of acronyms and lots of techie stuff, and doesn't always make sense. And what does benefits of planning also do? It gives you time for transition. So that gentleman I was talking about, this is a family whose son currently living in the Boston area. And the plan is going to be for him to move in with his brother who lives in Vermont, out of state. But so what they're doing now is this young man is starting to spend more time at his brother's house in Vermont without his parents. So they can get to know each other. And so when that time does come for transition, it's not going to be as devastating. And also, when you do planning, the service design is going to be better suited to the needs of your loved one. A lot of times, yes, emergency things do happen. People step up, people do get services, but it may not be what your son and daughter needs. So that's why it's important to plan. So how do you have the conversation, and who do you have the conversation with? it can be a hard conversation. You know, for some people it's easier. You know, I know one family who began the conversation by just showing them their notebook. They have a you know, 3-ring binder with everything there is to know about their son with special needs. And so just I think it was after the holidays, they got together and they just went through the notebook together. Sometimes conversations, you know, they're just not welcome. So there's also different types of support people out there who can help with that. I'm thinking especially adult siblings. There is the Mass Sibling Support Network, and I have some information on resources at the end, and they would definitely be, you know, helpful in terms of how people have had conversations. But who should be involved? Obviously, parents, sibling, and the individual. Huge to have the individual involved as much as they're able. You know, to articulate what's important to them. You know, what are the strengths? What are, you know, what would they like? What about community connections? You know, church, recreation, other caregivers who are involved in their lives, maybe some service providers, friends, and also the Department of Developmental Services. You know, just having a conversation about, well, you know, we're starting to plan for the future, and these are some of our thoughts. Some people have this conversation together on a birthday, you know, just on an annual basis. Others, you know, around the holidays because lots of people are home. Others actually start having a conversation when there's a crisis, and that's just not the easiest time because you can't do some of that thoughtful planning. So the earlier you begin discussing, the better. And so what are the components of future planning? I divide it into 3 areas, and really it's about legal planning, you know, your trusts, your wills, your medical proxy, all that sort of thing, any kind of decision-making supports, financial, you know, trusts, ABLE accounts. Are you getting, is your loved one receiving benefits such as Social Security, SSI, SSDI, Mass Health? Those are all very, very important because they pay for a lot of programs and services. And then also the plan for a meaningful life for the individual. What does that look like? So we'll go through some of these components. You know, as I said, you know, the legal aspect, it's really about wills, special needs trusts. These are all set up by attorneys. I just wanted to mention that sometimes another barrier is for future planning is that families don't feel that they have the resources to be able to access this. So there are alternatives to going to an attorney for some of these things. So I just wanted to just kind of reinforce that you don't have to have resources to be able to do the legal planning. And as you know, having a will is extremely important. And there is actually, it's either called Legal Zoom or Zoom Legal, which is an online will that you can, I believe a 2-parent family can access a will, a power of attorney, and I believe a healthcare proxy for under $300. You know, it's certainly the best practice is to use an attorney who has a background in special needs, that understands benefits, that understands trust, you know, and that sort of thing. But there are alternatives. So special needs trust, there's all sorts of types of trusts. There's, you know, there's a pool trust, where, you know, there's agencies out there, the Berkshire County ARC, the ARC of Bristol County, and a program in Massachusetts, in Rhode Island called PLAN. And basically what they do is they pool your money, but they will help allocate that trust. Healthcare proxy, you know, it's really important, and actually, in this day and age, actually having a medical profile. We have one on the ARC of Massachusetts COVID web pages because, you know, if your loved one had to go to a hospital and they were not, they did not have representation, giving as much information as possible. Also, advance directives or end-of-life decisions. There's a beautiful document out there called 3 Wishes, and it's $5 or it's free, and it just kind of, gives you that ability to talk about what you want for not only yourselves, but your loved ones in terms of end-of-life decisions. Really important. And also very important is a power of attorney and decision-making support. So once we are no longer saying just guardianship, because it's really, we want to tailor what kind of support does a person need to make good decisions. Not everybody needs a guardian. Some people do. But, there's other ways that you can help protect your loved ones. And actually, when their community of supporters is larger, they're actually a lot of times safer because they've got more eyes on them. So there's something called supported decision making, which is a few years old now. And there's also, you could just be a medical guardian. You don't have to be a complete guardian if you're really worried about the medical decisions that your loved one's going to have to make. So there's different alternatives. So it's important that you, really kind of examine what is it besides just saying, oh, my loved one needs a guardian, a full guardian. I always recommend the book Special Needs Planning in Massachusetts, and it's written by a mom and also an attorney who that specializes, and her name is Barbara Jackins. And what I love about it is she writes it in English, not legal jargon, and she goes through all sorts of legal type of issues and guardianship and power of attorney and healthcare and all of this kind of good stuff. So I would highly recommend that book. It's probably, I think it's about $30, and it will save you a lot of money and answer a lot of questions. So that is something I always recommend people do. And then we want to look at financial, so I mean, you're getting your loved one's benefits, SSI, SSDI, maybe a Section 8, if you're lucky to get off the list, food stamps. When you do get some of these benefits, you also get Mass Health, and they pay for programs such as personal care assistance, adult family care. Are you, some people have trusts that aren't funded till they're no longer there. So their life insurance policies are funding trusts. So you can develop a trust and not fund it right away. So again, I don't want to, I think it's important that you look into all of these things and don't assume that you have to have a lot of money to be able to plan for these things. The other thing, which I didn't put on the screen, and I apologize, is are you getting, state benefits in terms of services? Is Department of Developmental Services involved? Are you getting some assistance from Mass Rehab Commission? So those are also some resources out there that you can access for some of your future needs. Earnings from employment. I know a gentleman who has his own condo. He's never gotten SSI. He's worked all his life. And he got into those low-income condo developments, and so he uses his paycheck to pay the rent. His also something in the past, I don't know, boy, I want to say 5 to 10 years now, across the country is the ABLE accounts, so that you're able to squirrel away $15,000 a year, and it won't count against your SSI assets. So as you know, you can't have more than $2,000 in the bank to be eligible for SSI, and so ABLE accounts are you can squirrel away some of this money and be able to use it for things that are going to give you that good quality of life. And then, planning for a good life. So, starting with a vision for the future, what are the person's strengths? What's important to them? The relationships in their lives, huge. The traditions, routines, and how are they best supported? Sometimes both the individuals and the families have different visions for what a good life is. And when that happens, I think it's really great to talk about it because, we don't always want to do what our parents want us to do, right? I mean, growing up, I think my mom wanted me to be a secretary. So, but that wasn't in my plan. So anyways, it's just getting people together that are part of the relationships, that are part of the network. It's a wonderful dynamic process. So anyways, so I'm going to talk a little bit about tools to help for planning that good life. And one is, hopefully, most of you have heard of a letter of intent. The letter is basically a document. I mean, you can Google letter of intent and you'll get like 50, you'll get a wide variety. They're basically a good document that you can, as a caregiver, you can put everything down in one place. I was talking to you about that mom who, has her plan that her son's going to go live with the brother in Vermont. She has hers in a big notebook. She has everything from Social Security to, just who are the staff people, who are the contacts, any past evaluations that were really, really helpful, and that sort of thing. So we'll go into a little bit more about the letter of intent. Then I talked to you a little bit about charting the life course, which is actually a framework. And it is a way of problem solving and planning. And then also there is the Center for Future Planning, which is through the ARC of the United States, and they have an online portal that you can do your future planning there. So these are some of the tools that are great. So so this is a copy of Evelyn's letter of intent. It's her way of being able to really talk about what's important, what her dreams are for her son Tom. She was funny. She was telling the story, and I don't think she'd mind me sharing this at all, how she wanted Tom to really just, sit in and he lives in Boston and, Cambridge area. And so she wanted him like in, LL Bean attire and that sort of thing. Because, for this mom, it was really important that Tom was well dressed and that, he didn't stand out. So it can be as subtle as that. Another family I know is that their son has to have his cereal in a certain bowl every morning. I mean, this sounds really trivial, but when you think about how much you know about the idiosyncratics of your loved ones, and if you would just zoom to the future and think of new caregivers, that's so important. Holidays and routines. I was on a webinar the other day, and I thought it was a great story from a service provider who did a transition. Unfortunately, their mom passed away, and he was placed into a residential program. But the siblings were a big part of that transition, which was great. So it turns out that I guess I'm just going to call him John, that on Mondays did his laundry, and then after his laundry, he had a beer. And that was his routine for like 20 years. And so the group home residential program was able to incorporate that. So he kept a little bit about what makes him happy and what makes him stable. So this is all what the letter of intent can do. And it also provides all that, information on benefits and state services and that sort of thing. So something to think about. And now I'm going to go into a little bit more about charting the life course. So as I mentioned, charting the life course, it's coming to Massachusetts, very big. It's now in the family support guidelines through the Department of Developmental Services. What I really love about this is there's no jargon involved. It's really about, just what works. It's universal. As I said, there was a number of us, there's about 15 of us in the state who went through I keep changing the slides, who went through this ambassador training just to get a deeper dive. We've been doing monthly webinars and calls to try to increase the knowledge. And like I said, it really it's everything you and I talk about. It's about family. It's about friends, about what we like to do, where we work, where we play. And there's it can apply to anyone. So during our ambassador training, we actually used all of these frameworks on ourselves so that we were able to really look at this. So, and it's very person-centered. I mean, it's around the individual. So this is just the trajectory. You don't need fancy tools. You don't need, beautifully drawn posters. You can just do this on, a notebook. But, what is a good life? And what don't you want? And I don't know how many of you are families out there, but I just wonder how many of you have ever been asked, what don't you want? It's something that it's important because a lot of times sometimes people struggle with vision, because it's maybe too out there or too flowery or that sort of thing. But I don't know of any family or individual who could tell me what they don't want. And a lot of times people start there and then they jump. The trajectory could be about getting through your day today with COVID and the isolation, or it could be looking at 5 years down the road. You set what the topic would be. You set the timeline. This is very, very universal. And then the trajectory, what's also good is to look back at your experiences. And what were some of those experiences that really helped you define what a good life was? Did you really enjoy, if it was around employment? Did you really love helping your elderly grandmother? Did you like walking dogs in the neighborhood, feeding cats, all sorts of different things? And also, it's a great way of kind of preparing for your IEP or your ISP, and just being able to kind of look at events throughout the past year of what's leading you up to continue to go for that, the good life, the vision. And then it also is important because you're going to be thinking of experiences of what happened and what makes you say what you don't want. And then looking at that trajectory, taking it out and saying, oh, okay. So, life doesn't go in a straight line, as we know. There's lots of curveballs. But this is a nice visual to be able to kind of go back and visit. So I was talking to you about how universal this Charting the Life course is. And these are the life domains that they have. And it's, one's daily life and employment, one's healthy living, safety and security, community living, social and spirituality, advocacy, and engagement. And, again, these are just very holistic. I mean, it's everything you and I talk about in our lives and that sort of thing. So these domains, they have some really, really nice tools and frameworks to look at these domains and then be able to look at planning around them. So you don't have to do the full plan. And then this is what they call the integrated support star. And this I really appreciate because, if you're always kind of looking at this green section of the star, eligibility specific, you're probably not going to get everything you want. And it's not probably going to bring you the happiness that you're looking for and the safety. There's cutbacks, rules change. Who knows what's going to go on with all this funding throughout this pandemic. We've, discovered some other ways of doing things. Certainly, eligibility-specific things are very, very, very important. I'm not downplaying that, but to only rely on that is probably not going to get you where you really want to go. So you really start with a person's strengths and assets. What do they do well? What's their personal knowledge, their person and family resources, social skills, personality traits, and then looking at relationships. Who's in their lives? I mean, it's just not paid professionals. Who's in the family? Who's their friends, neighbors, coworkers, community members, church members? We did some planning with a gentleman, and at his person-centered plan, we used these frameworks, and it was really neat. And he's very involved in his church, and there was members of his church. The minister was there, and also one of the church members who he and she sing a duet every year during one of the church services. He goes to lots of potluck suppers there and meetings and events, so that was a huge piece. There was also people from his condo there who were helpful in terms of being able to kind of be willing to keep an eye out and understanding a little bit more about this gentleman and what kind of strengths he has, but also what kind of challenges he could have from time to time. And I think people are looking much more at technology these days. And, certainly through COVID, we have really seen the importance of technology. We've seen some individuals do far better because of technology and not having to go to in-person type of programs. So are we looking at, how technology can be able to provide supports and that sort of thing? I was doing a workshop with a bunch of transition age families, and one of the dads was talking about having a Nest, one of those cameras, so that his daughter gets off the bus, nobody's home, but he can watch her. He can watch her go into the house and safely and that sort of thing and know she's okay. So those monitoring devices, another woman I know, her big stressor was getting home on time to the bus because, John couldn't be left alone and didn't have a key and and so and she said, if I could just have 10 minutes that I know he's okay. And so she basically, with her iPhone, they did FaceTime, and she would walk around the block, and she would go a little bit further every day, and they'd check in, and they've been able to, and so now she knows that she can, it's still not ideal, but she does have a 10-minute window, and that's what she needed. There's also community-based, church, faith-based, public transportation, parks and recreation, school, businesses, lots of different resources out there in the community. And it's just so important to look at how these all work together to be able to provide your goal. So like I said, when there's a saying in a life course that, if you depend on your all green, don't make your life all green. So, and then they also have, and this is their website, by the way, they have these life stages, and you'll see the life stages, you'll see the domains on the bottom of the booklet, and also life stages. So they start at infancy, and they go all the way through aging. And every life stage booklet has the different domains, but they change the question, because as you age, your questions do change. So in the aging booklet, talked about where you're going to live someday if mom and dad, were no longer there. And so it's just a great way to kind of start thinking about those questions around future planning. So, there we go. So then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the ARC Center for Future Planning. I'm going too fast. So they have their website, which is up here, futureplanning.thearc.org. They have a website. They have a Build Your Plan tool. They have a letter of intent that can be filled out electronically. By the way, this website is all in Spanish and English, which is helpful. They're hoping to also to get some other languages there. It will walk you through housing, decision-making, benefits, planning, future caregivers. They also do have a professional services directory, and any person who has gone through and been certified is listed on there as somebody who's knowledgeable in future planning. It's also, they provide information referral. So you can basically, and you can share this. So say, you know, you start to do this and you want to involve the adult siblings in it as well. And you can share, and people can provide different information. So it's just a really nicely organized way to be able to kind of articulate a plan for the future. And again, the ARC really put this together because of the dire need of older caregivers throughout Massachusetts. So I like to call it passing the baton, or who's next, you know, kind of what experiences there are out there. You know, so who do you pass it to? Sometimes there's adult siblings. Doesn't mean the adult siblings are the ones who are going to have the, you know, your loved ones live with them, but they would be, you know, hugely important in terms of emotional, maybe advocacy, being a trustee, being a medical proxy, you know, knowing, you know, inviting them to their house on holidays and making sure that family celebrations are still going on. Sometimes it's other family members, and sometimes it's friends. I can tell you about a situation where this mom, a friend of a mom, promised this mom on her, you know, in her last final days that she would watch over her daughter for her. Her daughter's in a residential program. She's got a lot of physical complexities as well as, you know, having an intellectual disability. But so what she is, she's a trustee for her special needs trust. And this mom doesn't, or this friend, you know, doesn't provide any kind of care, but she'll attend the ISPs for this young woman. And she did access some private pay support because she was worried that the group home this young woman was in wasn't doing enough, and they weren't getting out a lot. And so she pays somebody through the trust to be able to do visiting, they do cooking, they go to the library, they go out to lunch, they do all sorts of stuff. So that's just another role people can play. And then there's also professional organizations. You know, attorneys can be, you know, trustees, Mass Guardianship Association, and that sort of thing. Sometimes there's no one to turn to, which, you know, you hear that from a lot of families. One family, you know, their daughter, one's in Washington State and the other is in Europe living. And so what do you do when there's nobody right here? There's, you know, some people, like, they engaged other type of relationships. Other people use a kind of a combination of professionals as well as acquaintances, and developing that supportive relationship circle, really important, because, you know, we kind of go back to when there's more eyes on a person, that person's life is probably going to be better, and there's going to be less risk of any kind of abuse or neglect. So, and they're usually healthier and happier. So again, people don't have to play everything. You can, some people can be the emotional supporters, some people the legal, some people the financial, and other people the advocacy. So just some things to think about who will, you know, the baton be passed to. So just sharing some different resources out there with you, and then we can open it up for questions. This is the Center for Future Planning at the ARC of the United States. Encourage you just to take a look. I also gave you the Charting the Life course, and you'll all get it, by the way, you're all going to get a copy of this at the end of the webinar today. There's also a group through Boston University. I was on their advisory committee, and they're developing a new program to help adults who have a sibling on the spectrum work with their families to plan for the future. It's called Siblings Forward. And it's really unique. They've been doing some piloting throughout Massachusetts, and it's a way for siblings to be able to be far more organized and involved in future planning for their brothers and sisters. And also, I just wanted to mention the adult sibling resources because, siblings, when they are available, are incredible resources. And again, doesn't always mean they're going to be the caretakers. So I support a family in the Boston area, and every year his sister, who will be his future guardian, who will be the trustee, who will, be a good advocate and also a watchdog for her brother. She comes to the ISP versus, Skype. So she Skypes in and is part of the ISP process. And it's just great because she's learning the lingo because, as in human services, we're always talking lingo. And also she's seeing the players and she's seeing how it works. And she can ask questions and people see her as a valid member of the team. So even though her parents are both living and are the major caregivers and, advocates, she's learning in bit-side pieces. So I think that's just a wonderful way to bridge that gap. And so here's their website. They're a great group of people. They're all siblings and can offer enormous amounts of support. We've been doing a series with the Mass Sibling Support Network. We're called Passing the Baton, and we've been highlighting siblings as well as caregivers, just kind of going to those next phases. And then there's also a national network called the Sibling Leadership Network, and it strives to support siblings, encourage leadership, and promote family policy initiatives. So that's that. And then I just wanted to tell you a little bit about support brokers and through the ARC of Massachusetts, we were that fee-for-service program. We do offer assistance with future planning. And, we develop a personalized plans that's uniquely suited to your family's needs. We'll set a path to meet these goals, examine what's essential for you, assist in the facilitation of meetings to identify resources and supporters, and guide you through some of that documentation and referral to legal and planning professionals. So many of our current brokers have actually undergone training with both the Center for Future Planning as well as several of us are also ambassadors through Charting the Life course, and we all have experience with person-centered planning. So at that point, I just want to open it up for questions. I know I've been talking at you for a long time, and I apologize. Would anybody like to ask? I'll open up the chat box. You can either chat them in. Okay, hi Rosalie. She's a parent and a professional and also a support broker. Cheryl says, great resources. Thank you. You're welcome, Cheryl. Cheryl also does a lot of person-centered planning in Massachusetts and does a lot with circles of support. So thanks, Cheryl, for joining us. How about any questions? And again, you can chat them in or you can unmute yourself. Just wondering if any of you have done future planning. I'll kind of open it up to that question.
Hello.
Okay. Hi. Who's
Hi.
this?
This is Karen. I'm a parent, and I have done, I've done the will, the special needs trust, power of attorney, all of that legal stuff. But
Uh-huh.
this gave me some like great ideas, like that letter of intent, and just like jotting down my son's, what's important to him, all his special routines and different things. So this was, you know, I had a legal piece done, but now this was great to jog my memory of putting together all the personal stuff that's going to mean a lot more to me for him in the future.
Okay,
So
thank you.
thank you.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that is, I look at a letter of intent and actually a personalized plan as just as important as all the legal stuff.
Right.
Because I think that we have another question up here. I'm just going to, about who advises what legal steps need to be taken at age 18. There's a number of resources. I mentioned that book by Barbara Jackins, Legal Planning for Special Needs in Massachusetts. Make sure you get the 3rd edition. And she goes through SSI, she goes through SSDI, she goes through everything. Also on our website, arcmass.org, if you go to our resource pages, we have our transition timelines. And if you look that up, you'll see everything. We divide what do you have to do when, and so we divide it into ages. So what are the things you have to think about when someone is turning 18? Typically they're at 18, they're reaching the age of majority is what the term is. So they are able to make their own decisions. They're no longer considered under your income. And so you can, that's why they typically will qualify for benefits like SSI, Mass Health. They can start looking into, getting applications in for adult services when they're no longer in school. So there's lots of things. So if you go through the transition timelines, I think you'll hopefully find that helpful. And, just to look at all the things you have to do. Most people get so overwhelmed at 18, and it is overwhelming. There is a lot of paperwork, but you know what? You don't have to repeat this paperwork. It's done. So I hope that, Jim, I answered your question okay. Okay, so Cheryl says, I'm interested in special needs trust for my 20-year-old globally challenged son. What would there be another webinar offered on that? Actually, in our archived webinars, we have 2 on special needs trusts, and you can access them by going to arcmass.org. One was done by Plan, but they just don't talk about pool trusts. They talk about all sorts of different trusts. So we do record all of our webinars, and we put them on our YouTube channel. So if you go to the ArcMass website and you click on webinars, you can click on a link that will bring you to what our archived webinars are. Also, Cheryl, there is the other webinar that we did was with Berkshire County ARC and the ARC of Bristol County, and they will go into detail about pooled trusts. And, again, that book, I don't need to keep talking about this book, but I think it's the best $30. It sits on my desk. I call it my Bible, just because it's just such great information. It's and you can read it a chapter at a time. You don't have to read the whole book at once. So, okay. So Christine talks about residentially, we use a positive support profile to share an individual's needs, preferences, and routines. Glad to share the template. That would be awesome. Love to see it. Yeah. And then Kathy Kelly, hi Kathy from MRC, and Kathy's also a support broker, and Kathy's also an ambassador for Turning the Life course. But there are, and she's also a benefits counselor with MRC, and they are incredibly helpful to help families with questions about public benefits like SSI, SSDI, you know, if your son or daughter works, how does that all work with the benefit and that sort of thing. So just a great resources that's free, and you do not, and please correct me, Kathy, if I'm wrong, but you do not have to be an MRC client to be able to receive benefits counseling. Okay, so Darlene missed the name of the book, an author. Could you say your name again, please? Sure. So the book is called Special Needs Planning. Oh, no, Special Needs Planning in Massachusetts. And it's the 3rd edition. And it's written by a woman called, her name is, now why am I just blanking that? Sorry, it will come to me in 1 minute. Barbara Jackins, yes. She's an attorney that specializes in special needs, as well as she's a mom. Her son has, Jack has autism. And Jean Clapper is also, thanks Jean, is also sharing a DDS transition fact sheet, and she put the link there. And let's see, and Kathy says, yes, indeed, you do not have to be engaged with MRC to use the benefits counseling. And Jack says, do you have to live in Massachusetts to work with the Arc of Mass Pool Trust, support brokers? We live in Vermont. You know, I can't speak for the Pool Trust. I would connect with, I don't think you do need to live in Massachusetts, but I would check with both the ARC, the Berkshire County ARC, or Mary Ann there, and then Michael Andrade from the ARC of Bristol County, and they could answer that question for you. Again, I'm not sure. In terms of support brokers, you know, before COVID, I would have said, oh, no, we really, you know, we need to stay kind of local because our expertise is how to navigate Massachusetts. But to tell you the truth, now that we're all virtual, we're all closer. So, you know, we may not be as, you know, we don't have the knowledge of Vermont services, but if you wanted some help along the way in terms of things to think about planning, person-centered planning, we'd certainly be able to help you. Oh, okay. Kelly Challen and Jean, they put in the link to Barbara's website in her books. Thank you very much. Yeah, I appreciate that. So I'm looking at the time, and it's 1 o'clock. And at the end, okay, we'll do one more. Is there any exception amongst autism spectrum disorders to be eligible to DDS? So I like to say that DDS has a few doors to enter. One is for people who have an intellectual disability. You can also have autism, but you also need to have an intellectual disability. And then there is another door for individuals on the autism spectrum, adults on the autism spectrum who do not have an intellectual disability, but have a formal diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder. So you can go on the mass.gov/DDS website and go to their eligibility, and there is lots of information there. Okay, all right. So at the end of the session, you're going to be automatically rerouted to a really brief survey just to let us know how your webinar experience is. I hope this was helpful. I love future planning. I know that's scary, but you know, it's something that's so necessary, and talking about it, I think we all feel better when we do. So everybody have a great day. Keep cool, keep safe, and keep healthy. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.